Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. My guest today is not Steve Ghikadis, as I butchered his name last week. It's Ghikadis, and I simply had misspelled it on my phone when I wrote it down. Welcome, Steve.
It's actually Ghikadis, which is fine. People just mispronounce it all the time, and it's really funny. But I think the last time when you said what was it,
Gadkis.
Gadkis, you made me sound like a Roman warrior. So I was thinking about changing my voice and making it like, yes, it's me, the Roman warrior. And it was just a lot funnier because on my audio book I recorded it, and I sound like a typical Canadian with like my boots and everything. But if I say a boot, I'm saying about. I'm not talking about my shoes.
Okay, very
Just so
good.
you know that.
And Steve is a Canadian. He lives in the land of the Seine.
I guess you could say that, yeah.
And also the land of snow. It's snowing there, isn't it? I
It
should
is. Well, yeah, and I guess it's kind of snowing a little bit right now, but there is like probably about a foot of snow or so on the ground, and it's not very pleasant.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
hmm
Rimmers asks, Ghikadis, is that Armenian?
It's actually Greek, but the only thing Greek about me is the last name and the body hair. So
Okay.
I'm a mix of Greek and Scottish, so
Purple says, please take us with you.
I am an emotional support Canadian. So if anyone does need to chat or anything, you can always reach out to me on Facebook. I see
Oh,
Kelly's here too. Hey, Kelly.
oh, there she is. I didn't see her. Hello, Kelly.
So,
Um,
so
I
Kelly and
do
I
want,
actually live close by to each other, and we're part of the same organization, Sunday Assembly Detroit. So it's nice to see Kelly here.
okay, I wanted to get one comment real quick and then we'll go right into that. Fred says that's why I like Fred. No one mispronounces Fred.
That's so true. But it's funny. I just had a chat with Secular Rarity not too long ago, and
Hmm.
and we were just talking about how like all of the popular artists and popular like authors and stuff have like really hard to pronounce last names, like Chuck Palahniuk and other people. So it's just kind of I guess it goes along with the trope, just having an author with a weird last name that you can't pronounce. Just makes it hard to find things.
I had a Greek classmate in high school whose name was Dula Zaharopoulos.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
yeah, if she ever writes a book, I imagine people will have a hard time with her name.
Yeah. That's usually when you make a pen name up.
Mhm.
if it's that extreme. So
Okay, you mentioned the Sunday Assembly. Tell us about what that is and where that meets and what the purpose of that is.
sure. So it's actually a worldwide organization, but there is like a USA headquarters. I think it's in LA. But the original story of it was it started back in 2013. It was two British comedians who were going to a show, and they said, like, wouldn't it be so nice if we could go to church but not like worship any kind of deities? And they're like, yeah, we should do that. So they put up a newspaper article, and I think they had like 200 people or something show up on the very first one on a Sunday. And they're like,
Wow.
oh, maybe we're onto something here. So then they started uh, having it like every Sunday or something, or every few Sundays, and it became a big thing. And then there was lots of newspaper articles and everything written about it. So then there's a lot of areas of the world that wanted to partake. So they started creating their own Sunday assemblies. So Sunday Assembly Detroit started in 2014, so a year after, and they it's been an amazing place. They meet in Farmington Hills. It used to be at the Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, but they've moved to a place called the Hawk, which is like a big recreation complex, and it's basically like a service, but there's no worship, and you have like a motivational speaker. You usually have food afterwards, and everyone kind of gets together. And actually, the first time I met Kelly, it was a potluck, and she made this amazing bean dish, and I'm like, wow, like you made this bean dish. This is just so good, so great. And that's how we really became good friends.
Cool. Cool. And let's go back and I should have started with your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Were you raised in a religious home?
Yeah, so I was actually baptized Anglican, but I never really bought into it. I would say I was raised as a free thinker, and I always say raised accidentally as a free thinker because my mom kind of did all the best practices without knowing how. She left me unlabeled. She allowed me to have friends of different backgrounds and beliefs. Um, you know, Everything was always on the table. There was never I never had to pray. I never had to, go to services or anything like that. So I kind of lucked out that way. But I would definitely go to different services with friends and just see it for what it was, which is just, humans trying to tell the story of how we got here. And I would also read myths and things and other stories. And then it wasn't until I met my wife that I had to kind of confront religion because she's a Christian. And when I first met, I felt like there wasn't really that big of a divide. But once we started hanging out more, I would have to go to church with her friends or with her family and everything just to kind of fit in and get along. So I kind of pretended to be a Christian to get along, and it kind of backfired on me in a bad way because I kind of blew up at everybody and just came to the conclusion I didn't believe it, and started lashing out at people for their beliefs. And I was more mad at myself than anybody else just for duping people into thinking I was something I wasn't.
Mm.
So it took a bit of time to get over that.
Okay. And so you never really bought into the Christianity. What made you determine that you were an atheist?
Yeah, that's a good question too, because I didn't really take on the label of humanist or atheist or anything like that at that time because I didn't really know anything about it. I was more of an apatheist, I would call it at this time. Now looking back on it, I just didn't care one way or another. And like I said, I was looking into like Greek myths and things too. And I even at one point said, Zeus, if you're real, hit me with lightning. And luckily for everybody here listening, that didn't happen. But it's just one of those things that just never stuck with me. My brain, I could never wrap my head around the idea of the stories that were in the Bible. They just seemed like fairy tales to me, and they seemed so similar to other myths and stories that I had heard. So I never bought into it.
Okay. Now, do you work with a humanist organization?
Yeah, so I work with a few of them. So I was actually the former president, or I am the former president of Sunday Assembly Detroit, even though I'm Canadian. So last year I was the president there for a year, and before that, and now back to this time, I am I'm an outreach officer. So I'm going to be talking to people about coming to being a guest at Sunday Assembly Detroit. So if you're ever in the Detroit area, it would be great to have you on as a guest there. Come up and do a talk there. That'd be really cool. But yeah, and then I'm also part of Humanist Canada. So Humanist Canada is kind of the group that oversees humanism within Canada as a whole country. And I'm certified through them to be able to conduct weddings, funerals, and other meaningful life celebrating services. Actually, behind me on the wall is my certification back here saying that I can do those things through Humanist Canada. So it's a great organization. They put on a lot of things. And actually the International Humanist Conference that's coming to Ottawa, I think it's August 7th weekend. Humanist Canada is hugely involved with that because of the situation in America, and American Humanist Association wasn't able to host this year because of the certain situations that are going on.
Yeah, American Atheists did that too. They ended up canceling their annual convention and instead combining it with the the World Humanist Congress.
Yeah.
And doing those jointly, just because of one, the fear of international speakers in coming to America, and I get it. I would not want to be a foreigner in the United States right now. And second, Trump has specifically said he's going to target the American atheists. So, meeting right now is likely to, have repercussions.
Yeah, no, definitely. Another thing I forgot to mention too is that I'm the former ambassador program director for Recovering from Religion. I still work with them as an ambassador. I've stepped down from the leadership position there, so I mostly just go to events and conferences and table for RFR. So if anyone is ever struggling with lack of belief, anything to do with doubts or anything like that, it's a great group to be able to reach out to. www.recoveringfromreligion.org. They're basically just peer support workers that can be a shoulder to cry on or an ear to listen.
Yeah, Recovering from Religion is a fantastic organization, and I love the work that they do. Kelly has minor clarification, I was slightly inaccurate. She says that American Atheist was already going to combine their event with the Humanist Organization, but it was supposed to be in Washington, D.C., and they decided because of what's going on to move it to Canada. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Thank you for the clarification there.
Yeah. So we're excited to have it here. It's great. It's about 10 hours from me in Ottawa.
So, since you were never really that into religion, what made you want to be an activist for humanism and for, well, I'm not sure. Do you consider yourself an anti-theist?
So that's a really good question. I don't consider myself to be an anti-theist. And at one point I probably would have considered myself to be that.
Mhm.
Like we do go through a lot of labels on the spectrum here and there because of different situations. And when I was lashing out at people as an angry atheist, I would have considered myself probably to be an anti-theist at that point. But I found Anthony Magnabosco, who was doing street epistemology, which is like having Socratic conversations on the street, asking people about their deeply held beliefs and why they have them and understanding those. And I watched all of his videos. I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm struggling with my marriage. I'm struggling with people in my family that are religious because I just came out as a non-religious person and I'm very, angry about it. And at the same time, I ran into Dale McGowan, who also writes books on interfaith marriage and parenting and things like that. And I also reached out to him and I'm like, you know what, I need help. So both of these guys were tremendous help in me understanding what it is, like why people believe what they believe and how we can still get along and find commonalities between us and them. And that's the thing, is getting rid of the us versus them narrative is a big thing for me. So that was kind of the driving force behind my activism. I started, during that time watching the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen and all those shows. And I saw Recovering from Religion as a really great resource. And I put in my application to be part of them during the pandemic. So then for the last, 6 years now, I've been with them, with Recovering from Religion, helping people that are struggling with the same issues that I had at that time. I was able to overcome the issues within my family and find common ground. And then that's why I wrote the book about getting along with people and finding finding the bridge across the divide.
Now I've forgotten the name of the book.
It's Humanism from the Heart, Building
There
Bridges
we
Beyond
go.
Belief. I got a copy of it right here.
Okay.
So yeah, whoa, I can't even. There we go. Yeah, and
And
then so sorry.
there is a link in the description to the Amazon copy of that book. If you would like a
Oh, awesome.
copy of the book, just click on the link and it will take you right to where you can purchase a copy. And I do want to spend some time talking about that book because that book is a really great book.
Oh, thank you very much.
You begin by, you're talking about what you just mentioned about, actually, you begin with talking about going back and forth through the border of the United States and Canada.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in just a minute. And then the next thing you did go into was the street epistemology. But tell us a little bit about your experiences in crossing the border between the United States and Canada.
Yeah, so I was crossing quite often to attend Sunday Assembly gatherings, and whenever I go across the border agent would, say, roll down your window, and what's your business in the United States? And I would say, well, I'm going to a humanist gathering, and they're like, humanist, like what is that? And I'm just like, it's like a non-religious. And they're like, non-religious. I'm like, well, like it's not anti-religious, just non-religious. Like there's no religion to it. You could be religious, but you don't have to be religious. And they kind of prefer if you're not religious. And they got into this whole explanation of what it is, and they're just kind of like rolling their eyes, whatever. And they're like, all right, enjoy yourself, kind of thing. And at one point, I did this a few times, and at one point I just said to the border agent, like, yeah, I'm going to Sunday Assembly Detroit, which is a humanist organization. They meet at the Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, which used to be called the Birmingham Temple. And then my wife just says, just tell them we're going for lunch. It's just so much easier, so much easier than explaining every single time. But I'm such an honest person. I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve. So I'm like, I'm just going to tell people what I'm doing. And it's
Uh-huh.
not always the right answer or the best thing to do to be completely transparent. So
I actually did that once. We went to Niagara Falls, and we went into Canada just to have lunch at a particular restaurant and then came back. So we really did go to Canada just to have lunch.
nice, nice. What restaurant was it?
It had something to do with an alien theme.
Oh yeah, okay, the UFO diner.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that's a really cool place. It's shaped like a UFO, and then it has like all this like alien theme things, and they even have like the old ET dolls from like the 80s.
Uh-huh.
It's great. I love it. Yeah.
Okay, there's one other story that I specifically wore the shirt that I am wearing, and I'm gonna have to move my mic so people can see it. I'm wearing my Be Kind shirt. And this goes along with a story in the book that you tell about a shirt that you wore that said, "There is no hell, be kind anyway."
Yeah.
Tell us that story.
Yeah, so I was doing some errands around town and I just was wearing the shirt. And I kind of live in like the Bible Belt of Canada. So there are a lot of farmers around where I live, and a lot of them are like Mennonite farmers. So
Oh,
they're a lot like
really?
very, very strict religious people. And this guy with a big handlebar mustache and sunglasses saw me from across the parking lot and just kind of did like a stare at me and like kind of dropped his sunglasses down to look at me. And I just said like, hey, how's it going? He's like, I should just punch you in the face. And I'm like, excuse me? Because I'm like, I don't know what is it that I'm doing that is offending you, right? And he's like, your shirt, it says there is no hell. I should just punch you in the face for that. And I'm like, oh, well, what does the Bible say about hell? And he says, I don't know. I haven't read it. So I'm like, all right, have a great day. It's just really funny.
I find that so weird that he would be so angry over a shirt when he's not sufficiently into the religion that he hasn't even read the Bible.
Yeah, well, I find a lot of that. I find there's a lot of people who haven't even read the Bible that seem to claim that they believe the
Mm,
stories in the Bible. So
mhm.
it's kind of a weird thing. It's like they believe what their ministers or their pastors or their priests say from the pulpit, but they don't really do the research themselves.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I guess there is a lot of that, and part of the reason why I don't get that is because, when I became a Christian at 16 and I heard people saying Bible verses and talking about Bible stories, since I had had no exposure to the Bible whatsoever, I just assumed that everyone had read it, and
Right.
I figured that I must be way behind. So the first thing I did was read the Bible cover to cover,
Mm,
and I was absolutely flabbergasted when about a year later I found out that no, most of them had never read the whole thing. Had only read bits and pieces.
yeah, no, it's true. It's definitely true. Especially the Catholics because they read the catechism, but they don't read the Bible itself. So
Mhm, mhm.
mhm.
Well, the stories that we have just mentioned are the kinds of things that you find in the book Humanism from the Heart. And so if you would like to enjoy some more of those kinds of anecdotes and just personal conversations, get a copy of the book because there are plenty more of them in there.
Yeah, thanks so much. And the funny thing is that every 3 months or so, I release it for free as an ebook because Amazon lets me do that. So if you want to wait for a free copy and you don't want to spend any of your hard-earned money, it will be free, the Kindle copy. So just wait till March. I think that's the next one, and that'll actually be March 23rd is World Atheist Day. That's when I launched the book last year. So it'll be
Oh, cool.
my 1 year anniversary on the 23rd of March for when I launched the book. So.
Okay. What do you see as the future for humanism? Where do you want to see your work going?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think, and I get a lot of flack for this sometimes because I think that you can claim the title of humanist even if you are a religious person,
Mhm, mhm,
if you put the principles of humanism before your religious dogma.
mhm,
My wife, who is a Christian, considers herself to be a Christian humanist because she actually likes the principles of humanism, like the kindness, the compassion, the empathy, the scientific investigation, that type of thing. She always values all those things over her religious beliefs. And I find a lot of people when they say that they're religious, a lot of it is tradition. A lot of it's like family connection. A lot of it's about community. Like the majority of people who go to religious gatherings are mostly doing it for the community itself and not for theological purposes. So I don't really have any qualms with people who claim to be humanist. I consider myself to be a secular humanist, and that's kind of where I will place all my chips. I'll say, I'm a secular humanist. I don't believe in any deities, and I do follow the principles of humanism, which is the kindness, the compassion, the empathy. And I find that right now, certain places in the world are saying that empathy is a bad thing and you shouldn't be empathetic.
Yes.
It's so weird. It's like it's backwards,
Mhm.
and they're saying, you should have sympathy for people. You should feel bad for them and you should look down on them. And I just think, no, that's the opposite of what you should be doing. You should be walking a mile in their shoes. And the Christ that people seem to claim that to know seems to be different than the Christ that was actually written about in their book.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
like the people who claim to be Christian, I really like this saying. So someone said, before you put the Christ back in Christmas, you should put the Christ back in Christian. I thought that was kind of a clever saying that someone I saw on the internet had posted.
Yeah, Joe Rigney wrote a book called The Sin of Empathy,
Mm.
and he is promoted by Doug Wilson, who is the head of Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho.
Oh.
And Doug Wilson is one of these people who has way more power and influence than he should.
Hmm.
He's absolutely atrocious. He has horrific ideas of what we should be doing with our country. And unfortunately, because he is so over the top, a lot of journalists will come and report on him, and he gets a lot of national attention,
Hmm.
even though he's nothing but a crackpot.
Hmm.
And yeah, and Joe Rigney is a very close associate of his, and they are the ones that talk about this sin of empathy
Hmm.
that Jesus doesn't want you to feel sorry for people, or he wants you to, basically tell them what to do and tell them, to believe and so forth. Tell them to repent.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. It's just a strange thing to me. It's you should be practicing what you preach, at least. The people that have been saying for so many years that about love thy neighbor as thyself and that type of thing. We should be following that. I do feel like the humanist platinum rule kind of trumps the golden rule. Because the platinum rule is treat others the way they want to be treated, because not everybody wants to be treated the same. Right? There's some people that like certain things. Like there's a book called El the Humanist that my kids really like, and it was written by a little girl who's, I think her dad is an author, but she wrote this book, and it's she talks about how her brother doesn't like to be tickled on his feet, but she likes to be tickled on her feet. So she's like, well, you can tickle my feet, but don't tickle my brother's feet. And that's just kind of a cool little way of like the kids' understanding of that. Like people don't always want to be treated exactly the same.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, we have an excellent question here from BS Not Accepted, who says, "My daughter is a 'I am a worm' type of fundamentalist. How do I deal with that?"
I don't even know what that is. I've never even heard that before.
Oh, really?
Can you
Okay,
explain
in
that a
that
little bit
case,
more?
I will handle it because I have been there, and I was absolutely that. Because that is the Calvinist doctrine,
Okay.
which is that all people are created as sinners. You are worthless in the sight of God until God chooses you and chooses to redeem you. And only by God choosing to redeem you do you become anything more than worthless.
Hmm.
And I have been there, and that is not an easy thing to break. Um, you do not feel like you have bodily autonomy. I never considered myself to have bodily autonomy until after I stopped believing.
Wow.
And I don't think you can break the "I am a worm" until you break the theology. I think that's where you have to go, is you have to break the theology first, is show her that the things that she believes in are self-contradictory.
Hmm. What I've always heard from Calvinism is that they believe in strictly determinism. So they think that everyone is either determined to go to heaven or to go to hell. So that's kind of
Mhm.
a weird thing for me to wrap my head around. But um, sorry, that was John that brought that up. So
Mhm.
John, it depends on how, like, what you mean by deal with it. If you want to have a relationship with your daughter, what I always recommend is there's three things that I always recommend, and it's the mutuals, as I call them. And there's the mutual understanding, um, the mutual acceptance, and the mutual respect. So finding out what it is that she actually believes and why by going through the Socratic method, using street
Mm.
epistemology. So you could actually ask gentle questions. So instead of saying like, why do you believe in myths? Like, why do you believe this myth? You can say to her like, what is it that gives your life purpose? What is it that gives your life meaning? And maybe she'll say, like, oh, I find my meaning in Jesus or whatever, right? And you can say, well, what is it about Jesus that you find meaning in? Like, what is it about his teachings that you like so much? And you can kindly ask these questions and then maybe have her open up. And if you can get to the point where you actually understand where she's coming from, and this, it doesn't always work, right? Because there's also someone on the other side that also has opinions and stuff too. So that person, she may not want to have a back and forth conversation like this. She might not want to ask you questions about what you believe. But if you can develop that mutual understanding of like, okay, she can understand where you're coming from and you can understand where she's coming from, then you can move on to the next level, which is the mutual acceptance. I know something like the I am a worm thinking, which I've never heard before today. So I'm really glad we're touching on this. This is really cool for me. But that might not be something that you would be able to accept. But if you can get to the point where you understand where she's coming from, it might be a little bit easier for you to start having more conversations about it. And again, I would say reach out to Recovering from Religion, because they are an amazing organization that they can just listen to you. So if you have things you need to get off your chest about this, like they would have resources. They have a whole library of resources of things, and maybe there's other resources that have tackled this exact thing before that they might know about.
Okay, thank you. That was really helpful. Limited Light, otherwise known as Professor Sargent, says, but feeling a lack of self worth can last beyond leaving religion. It may not always stem from religion. And you are
Yeah.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think that's, again, where recovering from religion can really help.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with someone by the name of Britt Hartley. She's
No, I
she's
don't.
relatively new in the internet world, but basically she has a channel called No Nonsense Spirituality.
Okay.
And she always has the balance where she's like, I'm not sure if the world will be better without religion completely, or if the world will be better if we can kind of co-opt religion and turn it into something that we can use that's useful. And she has a great book called No Nonsense Spirituality, and she has a workshop, like an actual class that you can take, where you can learn, like, she calls herself an atheist spiritual director. So
Mm,
whatever spiritual means to you, she will, all of her resources are really great for understanding, like, if you still have one foot in the door, or you still have some type of spiritual beliefs, those might actually be meaningful and purposeful for you, so you can actually maintain those and get beyond the actual theological side of things and still hold on to some type of spiritual belief, if that's what you're comfortable with.
I have known a number of people, and this has not been my experience, and so it's a little difficult for me to understand, who, even though they no longer believe in God, they no longer believe in Christianity, they still have this lingering doubt about hell. They still have
Mm.
lingering fears about hell. Would she be someone that can kind of turn that into a more positive spiritual outlook?
She might be able to. I'm not entirely sure what it is. I know she has tons and tons of videos. I think she's been doing this for 2 years. So she's got tons of videos. She even has like a video, and it's like, does autism prove that God doesn't exist? And it's kind of neat because the people that are on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, a lot of them are completely like, they just don't have any need for religion, period, right? Because
Mm,
they don't have that social aspect to their lives where they need to have like a community and they need to be part of something bigger. So she's just saying, like it doesn't 100% prove that there's no God or anything like that, but just like that there's people out there that never need it and don't need it, right? So but she's got so many different things, and I just see someone right there just said Rhett McLaughlin, Good Mythical Morning, had her on the podcast. Yeah, so he had her on his podcast, and she's just a fantastic resource for people who may need to if you're still holding on to something like that. And also, again, recovering from religion, that's the number one question we get from people is, I'm still having fears of hell.
Mm.
And one thing that we always recommend is, do you remember Holy Kool-Aid?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he has a video where he actually went to, it was like the place in, I think it was in Israel, where the story of hell is actually based on, like the story of Sheol. And it's like, and it was like he goes through this entire video of explaining what it is, that where the stories came from and why people believe this, and the ideas of hell that we actually came from the Divine Comedy by Dante. It was actually Dante's Inferno, and that's the visuals and the things that we have of hell. The Bible doesn't really say much about hell, maybe like 1 or 2 lines. So like a lot of people are actually afraid of something that wasn't even in the Bible in the first place. So there's a lot of things that you can look into, but if you call Recovering from Religion, they will share the resources. Even if you go to the website and just look at resources on fear of hell, you can type in fear of hell and it'll come up with every single resource we have on that.
Now, I always thought that the idea of the fires of hell came from Revelation, where it talks about that at the final judgment, everything's going to be thrown into the lake of fire. The devil and his angels are to be thrown into the lake of fire. Those whose name is not written in the book of life are thrown into the lake of fire. How is that not the source of, the idea of the fires of hell?
I think that's the original idea from it, but it's not where we get like the visual, like the whole, every little thing, like the demons and the devil and all those things. Like those all came from the story of Dante's Inferno, and like the nine layers of hell and all that.
Okay.
And yeah,
Okay.
so it's like, the hellfire idea came from the Bible, but like people really delved into the ideas that Dante was putting forward as their visuals for what they think of when they think of hell.
Okay. And thank you very much, Fred, for the super chat. I appreciate that very much.
Thanks, Fred.
Okay, Steve, you and I have something in common that you've mentioned a couple of times, and that is that we are both married to believers.
Yeah.
The big difference is that when I met my husband, I was a believer too, and for the first, 30 plus some years that we were married, I was a believer. I've only been an unbeliever for the last 6 years. And so that has been a bit of an adjustment, but the big thing that came out with us is that once I quit believing, religion was off the table. He said, "I simply don't want to talk about it."
Right.
And so we don't. But it does not sound like that is the case with your wife.
Yeah, so there's a lot of nuance to our relationship. But when I started going down the path of looking up Dale McGowan's resources, the one book that I really focused on a lot was called In Faith and in Doubt. And it's like how interfaith couples can find a meaningful marriage. And basically, there's a part in it where it talks about the different practices that you can do to show your commonality. So one of them is actually putting a list of things that you find as positives about it, and one of the things that you find are negatives. So when I was going through this, and I was lashing out, and I was telling her, how stupid I thought her beliefs were at the time. She was really getting upset about it, and it was really causing a lot of issues. And she said, like, I just don't want to talk about it anymore. And there might have been a time where we were not going to work out. Like it just wasn't going to work. Right. Because I was so angry and she was so hurt by that. And I started doing the practices that were in the book and started talking to her in a way that, using the Socratic method and asking her questions about her beliefs, so I could finally get a full understanding of what it is that she believes. And one of the positives that she said, which I found at the same time, I put the same thing as a positive, is that our kids get to hear a difference in belief in our house in a safe environment. So I think that's a really good thing that both of us thought. And one of the negatives is that she said she didn't feel like she could be as much of a Christian as she wanted to. So once I learned that, I said to her, well, what is it about being a Christian that you want to do more? Like, what is it that you would want to do? And she goes, well, I just want to be able to go to church. And I'm like, okay, well, you can go to church, and then she'd say, well, I just want to, once in a while take the kids to church. Like, okay, yeah, once in a while take the kids to church. Like, it's not a big deal, right? And we started going through a lot of these positives and negatives. And then another thing you can do is you can actually make what's called a word cloud, where you put words about your relationship into this search bar, and it'll make this big cloud of all the words that make up your relationship. So all the words in the relationship were like love, happiness, kindness, fairness, respect, all these big words that mean way more than anything religious, right? And Dale McGowan says this, and I say a certain variation of this too, but he says that him and his wife agree on 99% of things except for God, which is the smallest thing when you think about it. And I say the same thing when I say, well, how the universe came about, because again, it's one of the smallest things if you think about it, because nobody knows the answer to that. So why argue about that stuff? It's better to focus on the things that matter. And if things, if she was like, say, super anti-LGBTQ, I don't think I could have had a meaningful relationship, just because I feel like there's certain things that are red lines, right? So there's certain marriages that won't work out, and certain situations where you can't get through to somebody. But I think that if you can find the common ground and commonalities, then you do have something meaningful that you can hold on to.
I was in the middle of reading this comment from Kelly, who says it's remarkable that you were able to deconstruct and are speaking and outdoing all this with only being 6 years. I've probably been an atheist for 9 years in July. I actually started almost immediately. I had only deconstructed 6 months before I started my YouTube channel and started speaking up for atheism. One of my funniest stories is I met Matt Dillahunty very early after I deconstructed. My son took me to Dragon Con. I think it was Dragon Con in Atlanta, and my son, it was the first time I'd ever been to a con, and my son wanted to make sure that I had fun, and so he was trying to find things that he thought I might enjoy, and he said, "They're doing the Atheist Experience live from the convention." Come, and I'd never heard of the Atheist Experience, but okay, let's go take a look. And so we went there, and I thought of a question that I wanted to ask Matt right away. And so when they took questions at the end, I got up right away, and we were near the front, so I was the third one in line. And so I began my question by saying, "Okay, I've been an atheist for a few weeks now." And Matt's, "You've been an atheist for a few weeks now?" And if you could find that old episode, it is kind of funny to see
That's
his reaction
awesome.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have to look that up. I kind of remember that, so I'm wondering if I did already see that one. I did go through a big binge watch of old episodes when I first came out as a non-believer to my family. So yeah, that does seem familiar to me.
You mentioned, talking about what your wife wants to do as a believer, and being able to work that out in your marriage. And I think my deconstruction actually was helpful to my husband's religion in one respect, and that is that when I was a believer, I was the one driving the train. I was the one saying that every time the church doors are open, we need to be there. And
Right.
early in our marriage, my husband had said, "Well, can't we just be pew sitters?" And now that I'm no longer driving the train, the extent of his religion is that he goes into the bedroom and watches a church service on Sunday morning, and then that's it. He's done with his religion for the week. And I think he's happy that I'm no longer dragging him to church events twice a week.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I feel like that's the same kind of thing for my wife as well. Like, when she did say that, it was early on in our differences chat, and she was more like, I think she was more scared that I was going to say, "No, you can't go." And I think that, like, when she realized that she could go, she doesn't really care and doesn't really want to go as much. She just kind of goes once in a while if she feels like it, or if she gets the whim to go, or if she's asked by family. But otherwise, I don't think it really crosses her mind that often. Like I said, she's more of a humanist Christian. She just cares about other people and cares about our family and our kids above her religious belief anyway.
That's the kind of religious belief that I could get into. Now, although minus the, believing in the myth stories.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is she of a faith that says that the man is in charge of the family?
No, luckily, no.
Okay.
She's United Church of Canada, which is relatively progressive. They
Mhm.
actually recently just put out a statement saying that, like an apology to the LGBTQ community
Mm.
for the way they treated them, which I'm kind of torn on, because I'm like, yeah, it's nice that they did that, but I'm also thinking, like, are they just trying to get people to come and sit in the pews, right? So you never know what the ploy is there, but it's nice that they did come forward and say that, and it kind of shows you how progressive they really are. And I think that that's what religion is going to have to do if it wants to survive. It has to progress. It has to be, accepting of other people, and because otherwise they're just going to close their doors, which they have been doing. Like 10,000 churches shut down in Canada over the last few years, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. They came out with a thing saying, "Oh, Gen Z men are the more they're going back to church at record numbers." But the Friendly Atheist, Hemant Mehta, actually went and did some research on it and found, like, the Pew research on it, and it actually shows that no, that it's still on a steady decline. And it shows that the more conservative men who want to have, like, the power over the family and power over things, whatever, are the ones kind of going back because it's a place where it's acceptable to be like that. And I think that that's what you're seeing are the people that are, the Christian nationalists that want to, take over and have control. They're the ones going back because they're trying to have that control over people and things. So,
Thank you very much for the super chat, Clyde Donovan.
hey, Clyde.
And Clyde says an apology is better than condemnation or doubling down on homophobia.
Mm-hmm. It's
Absolutely.
definitely
Okay.
true.
We also have a question that I've been holding that's also from Clyde Donovan, which is, how would you describe your speaking style?
I don't know what the speaking styles are, so if someone can enlighten me on that. I mean, I'm a Canadian, so maybe I'm a Canadian. I have a Canadian speaking style. I don't know. I say, a and a boot a lot, but I don't know, Clyde. If you have a list of different ones, different speaking styles, I'd love to see that. I've never really thought of that before or looked into it. So, really great questions today.
I Oops, there we go. I have kind of a silly question, and that is, I have heard that the reason that Canadians are not as angry and always upset the way Americans are is because once a year Canadians get together and put all of their anger into the Canadian geese, and then they send the geese down to the United States where we have to absorb all the anger.
You mean the murder chickens?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That is true. Yeah. No, there's actually a place called Jack Miner Sanctuary, and it's right near my house. And it's actually where all the Canada geese that are injured, they live there year round because they can't migrate south.
Mm.
So my kids and I will go there and we'll feed the birds all the time. But it's really funny because I'm not sure if you're familiar with Erin Lewis. She's also a
Yes.
writer.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
she actually she wrote a review on my book on Audible. And she
Mhm.
said, 5 stars, but 0 stars for perpetuating the stereotype that Canadians are so friendly. So I thought that was an amazing review and comment. So,
Okay. That is cool. Okay, what do you do outside of your work with humanism?
yeah, so I mostly do, like, weddings. I do a lot of weddings and preparing services for people that are non-religious. I've actually had a couple people who are religious, but they don't want to get married in, like, a church, or even if they're, like, in an interfaith relationship, whereas, like, one is Jewish and one's Christian, or one's Muslim and one's Christian, and they just don't want to have the whole family pick a side and say you have to do it in a mosque or you have to do it in a church. So I get a lot of people like that. And I've actually done a lot of same-sex marriages, which is really
Mm.
cool. And that's actually why I got into it in the first place. Well, actually, the reason why I wanted to get into it in the first place was because my mom was getting remarried, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could marry my mom? And so,
No, don't marry your mother. Let
yeah,
let it let
not in
another
that way.
man marry your mother.
Yeah, not in that way, but like to be able to marry them, and it was really cool. But the thing is that she was going to get married in October, and what was going to look into signing up to go through the training didn't start until October, so I wasn't able to do the very first one, but the very first one I did was a same-sex marriage, and that was like, I'm like, you know what, the reason why I want to do this is because in Ontario, there is no restrictions on marriage. People can get married, in the LGBTQ community. And I was like, that's going to be a goal of mine. And I even have on my business cards that I'm fully, I don't even know how the way I worded it, but basically fully accepting of all couples. So it was a really cool opportunity to be able to do that as my first one. And it's such a rewarding experience to be able to provide those services to people who can't find it elsewhere and who may be looked down upon in other settings. It's just been an amazing experience.
This is more of a personal question. If you don't want to answer that, I certainly understand, but you've mentioned your kids a couple of times. What are your kids' ages and how many are there?
So I have two boys, and their ages are almost 9 and 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they are not at the age where uh, they have a sufficient grasp on what they believe that they can say, "No, I don't want to go to church because I don't believe that kind of stuff."
Well, they do.
Okay.
So yeah, they have. It's really strange. So I've been using the 9 best practices for raising free thinkers, and that was actually in Dale McGowan's book, Parenting Beyond Belief.
Mhm.
And so I kind of mentioned a few of them before, but one of them is leaving them unlabeled. So you wouldn't say, this is a Detroit Red Wings child, or, a Detroit Tigers child, right? So you wouldn't say things like that. So why would you say this is a Christian child or an atheist child or whatever? Just leave them unlabeled. It's just so much easier to allow them to experience their own beliefs, because if you put a label on them that they have no idea how to defend, as soon as they get to the age where they're like, "Oh, I'm a Christian," and someone says, "Well, why do you believe in Jesus?" They'll be like, I don't know," right? Like they don't have that background to know that. They just had this label placed on them, and I feel like that was kind of me. I had this label placed on me because I was baptized Anglican. I would just, on surveys and things, I would say, "Yeah, I guess I'm a Christian," but I didn't really know anything about it because, like I said, I was an apatheist, didn't care one way or the other. But I wouldn't want to do that to my kids. Another thing is practicing empathy. And there's this really cool snippet from my book where I talk about my kids going to this street fair, and they saw a guy who's banging a stick on the ground, and they're like, "What is that stick?" And I'm like, "Oh, he's blind. He's using that cane to get around." And they're like, "Well, we want to go ask him a question." I'm like, "Okay, sure, let's go ask him a question." And Connor, I think he was 4 at the time, even, or just about 5, he clasped his hands together, and as I tapped the guy on the shoulder, I said, "My kids want to ask you a question." He goes, "Yeah, ask away." So my little 4-year-old at the time, he says, "What's your favorite bird?" And I kind of looked at him like, "Oh, like, why would you ask him that question?" Right? Because he's blind. I'm like, maybe he's going to take offense to it or whatever. Like, maybe he knows what birds are from like the chirping sounds, but like he probably has never seen a bird before. And he said, "No one's ever asked me that question before." And he knelt right down to his level. And he pulled up his sleeve, and he had this magnificent tattoo of a phoenix. And
Oh,
he said,
wow.
yeah, and he said, "The phoenix is my favorite bird because, like me, it's risen from the ashes." And it was just this amazing experience where it's like the empathy of a child to be able to go and ask a question to somebody and just get a genuine question and get a genuine response. And I look up, and his wife's eyes, like, she's bawling, right? Just bawling. He was crying, I was crying, and like the kids are like, "Why are you guys crying?" This is like, it's such a beautiful experience. And I know we made his day because he said it to his wife as they were walking away into the sunset that he couldn't see. So it's just such an amazing experience, and to see what humans are capable of and what kids are capable of. There's this really cool guy online. I don't know what his name is, but he's got a video, and he says, "If you want to know how we should all treat each other, listen to an 8-year-old, because an 8-year-old hasn't been corrupted by the world yet, right? They're very empathetic. They treat everyone with kindness. They accept everybody regardless what your color, what your backgrounds, what your worldviews are. Like, it's amazing to see what kids are capable of. And I think just encouraging them to continue living as long as they can with that type of attitude and outlook on life, I think is like the most important thing you can do.
I had a similar experience with my son when he was probably about the same age, and we were walking through the shopping mall, and a child walked by with his mother, and the child had some obvious, disabilities,
Mm,
and my son looked at me and said, "He's so cute. He's
mm,
so lucky." And I have no idea why my son thought him to be lucky.
mm, mhm.
Um, but the child obviously was just beaming at hearing that from my son that,
Yeah.
you know I think it might have been because the child had a balloon, and
Okay.
I think my son just wanted a balloon too.
Yeah, and it's so nice when the other kids hear that about them, right? Like, it's such a good thing for them to hear as well, that they're special, and
Mhm,
that they're lucky, and that type of thing. My son came home the one day from kindergarten, my older son, and he started like he's like, "I want a book on sign language." And I'm like, "Oh,
mm,
okay, sure, we can try and do that, whatever." And then so I'm like, "Why? Like, why do you want to do this?" He says, "Well, there's a boy in my class who he wasn't deaf, but he was nonverbal, and he spoke
mhm,
in sign language, and my son wanted to learn sign language so he could speak to him."
mhm, mhm.
So just really cute.
That is cool. Okay, there's a couple of comments going back to our discussion on, how nice Canadians are. And Fred said, "My parents found Canadians to be unfailingly courteous during their visits there. They were tourists, of course, but they were impressed."
Oh, well, that's so nice to hear. There's actually a really funny commercial that was put out by Quebec. And it was during the whole, well, I guess we're back into it now, but the whole tariff thing where it was like threats of tariffs and everything like that. So the Quebec put out this commercial, and it was this couple showing up to a hotel, and they ring the bell, and this lady comes to the desk, and she goes, and they said checking in, and then she goes, "Oh, okay." And she's like, "Where are you from?" And they said, "America." And she like reaches under the desk, and it looks like she's going to push like an emergency button, but she pushes a button that flips up the desk, and then she goes over and gives him a big hug. And it's like the
Oh,
cutest thing ever, because it's like, just like, you're safe here, you're welcome here, kind of thing. And it was just kind of a cool commercial that I really thought was touching.
oh, that is touching. That is cool. But Purple Rhymes with Orange says, "There is the other type of Canadian. Sorry about that. I'm going to have to kick your ass now."
Yep, there's definitely some of those for sure. Mostly in Alberta.
Uh, and Kelly says, "Your son rocks."
Oh, thanks, Kelly. Kelly has seen my kids in action, so she would know. I've seen her kids in action too, and amazing people. Her daughter is one of the smartest people I've ever met. So
Okay, we are nearly out of time. So, as a final question, I'd like to ask you, is there anything that you would like to talk about, or any question that I did not ask you that you would like to address?
I could just maybe mention a few of the things I have upcoming. So
Okay.
tomorrow I'm actually speaking to the Humanists of Topeka, Kansas. It's going to be an online thing. You can find the link to that on my Facebook if anyone can figure out how to spell my last name and add me as a friend or follow me on Facebook. That would be great. I'll definitely stay in touch. I have tons and tons of messages coming through all the time. People talking to me about how my book has changed their lives, and it's just been an amazing experience to hear that. So I'm totally willing to have any questions, comments, concerns, queries. Because if you don't have concerns about me, then I might be concerned about you. But yeah, so I'm doing that tomorrow. Clyde Donovan, who's in the chat here, I'm going to be speaking to Washington Humanists. I think it's the 22nd of February. Correct me, Clyde, if that's incorrect. But yeah, so there's that coming up. There's quite a few things I've got coming up. So if you're on my Facebook, you'll see some things. I am in the works on a sequel to the book. It's going to be called Humanism at Hand. Practical Principles for Peaceful Partnerships. And that's going to be more of a hands-on, how do you have these conversations, and how do you make how do you force the action and get people to kind of get along. But that's going to be a bit of time in the making. And Clyde says I'm correct. So the 22nd of February, I'll be speaking to Washington Humanists. So he said the 3 core speaking styles are informative, persuasive, and inspirational. Maybe I'm kind of a mix of all 3, because I try and inform, try and persuade people just to be able to choose kindness, and then inspirational, because I have a few stories that I think I can inspire people with. So, and Helen, I love you too.
Altruistic Artist says, we'd love to have you on Humanists Australia live stream.
I would absolutely love to, as long as it's not in the middle of the night, because I know that we're on the opposite sides of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you know what? Actually, might be better, because my kids would be sleeping, and then I'd be able to just say whatever I want, do whatever I want. So.
And Hell's Bell says, love you, Steve.
Yep. Helen, always love Helen. Helen is amazing.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. One more thing I do have to mention is on the 13th of February, I'll be on the line with Godless Engineer.
Oh,
taking
cool.
calls. So yeah, that'll be fun.
Cool. Now, those types of calls tend to get a bit combative and a bit confrontive. Do you plan to try to tone that down a bit?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I think that, and I've talked to a few people about this, is that, the new atheists were great. I feel like that was a really important thing that we needed at that time. I think especially with like the World Trade Center being hit and that type of thing, it's like, we needed Christopher Hitchens, we needed Sam Harris, we needed Richard Dawkins, we needed Daniel Dennett. And I think that we're moving into a new stage right now where we kind of need voices of people who are willing to reach across the divide and kind of make friends with progressive people on that side, because we need allies wherever we can find them. And I think that by showing that we're good people, and showing that we're not, baby eaters and cat killers and whatever else they think we are, just showing them that we're human beings that also have feelings and thoughts and that type of thing, I think is going to influence a lot of people to give us a shot, and to be able to not stereotype us so much in the future. And I think that's kind of what's needed right now. We just need to work together to make the world a better place, because all we have is each other, whether they believe that or not.
I think that's something that we in the United States are going to really need in the next administration.
Mm-hmm.
We have become so polarized here that you're either on the right or you're on the left, and there's just no common ground. And we're going to have to find a way to bridge the divide and start working together again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, and Kelly mentioned one more thing. So I am going to be doing an interview on her channel on the 20th of February as well. So
there it is.
Yeah. And okay. I actually, I have an upcoming podcast where I'm going to be speaking to a Christian apologist. And what my goal is to have a chat about our common values, like our shared values. And I feel like, apologetics, part of their spiel is they're trying to convince people with reason and logic to become Christian. So I feel like it's probably going to tread into that territory, and I'm going to have to try and reel him back into the shared values, like, okay, I understand you believe that, but this is how we can work together here and there and that type of thing. So I think it's going to be an interesting chat as well.
That does sound like an interesting chat. And that's going to be on YouTube?
Yeah. So it's a podcast called Irrational. And it's going to be, I think it's March 15th or something is going to be the launch date of that episode, but we're going to pre-record it. So, okay. And it's going to be moderated to some extent. And I asked the moderator, like, is this something like, are you going to reel him back in if he starts doing that? Or do you want me to kind of take it my way? And he's like, oh yeah, just, go with the flow. So I'm like, okay, cool. I have free reign then to do that. So I think it'll be great.
Well, Steve, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Yeah, it's been so awesome. Thanks so much.
And again, if you would like a copy of Steve's book, there is a link in the description to the Amazon page. And you can also find Steve on Facebook if you would like to talk to him further. And my guest for next week is going to be Justin of Deconstruction Zone. I know he was supposed to be on a couple of weeks ago, and he didn't make it, but he has promised that this week he will make it. I'm sure it's possible that something will come up, but barring something coming up, Justin will be here next week.
Awesome. I love Justin. He's great.
Thank you again, Steve. And thank you for all of you in the chat for your comments and questions. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Love everyone.
Live your life.